that, brothers and sisters? Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings. What I'm saying to the brother is that I'm not talking about coming and organizing anything. You've got enough organizations down here in Philly. You've got enough churches, you've got enough fraternities, you've got enough sororities, you've got enough of every kinds of organizations, just that none of them have the insight, except the few African ones. You got to realize that if we don't give our people more, and if we don't put more light in their consciousness, you're going to keep attending the funerals. You're going to keep going to the bail bondsman. You're going to keep sitting in sorrow with your friends. You're going to keep talking about why you got to bend your back because it's what's necessary to make the next dollar. And it's not going to change. And the next generation, they're going to kill more of your great-grandchildren. And the next generation, they're going to kill more of your great-great-grandchildren. And we ain't going to be doing nothing about it. White boys from the suburbs going to come in there with guns and keep killing you. Other foreigners going to come in with the dope and keep poisoning you. And you're not going to be able to do nothing but keep talking about I'm leaning on the Lord. Well, the Lord must have fell because we're not standing any longer. And one must be very fair about this matter. Any God that would lead his people through all of this with no light at the end of the tunnel, and the beasts get more glorious every day, either that God isn't worth much or we are not clear on what God is. And so we've got to get down and get serious. And so I've come down today. I have to be speaking in Brooklyn at 8 o'clock tonight, and I just left the thing at City College. But when Brother White called me, we dilly-dallied, and I said, brother, you know, I'm tight on this thing. He said, yeah, Brother James, you got dinner. I said, well, brother, you know, it don't look like I can make it. So, Brother James, we've been fighting for how long? So I says, Philly's going to be on my agenda today or else. Because it's important. This is an old black community in Philadelphia. This is one of the most revolutionary black communities in America, historically, in Philadelphia. This is the point, the ending point of major migration out of the South, especially out of my home, South Carolina, Philadelphia. And somehow Philadelphia, that was always the greatest light of the black world, have fallen into darkness. You know, it seems like ever since we allowed them to come in and murder those young people with the dreadlocks, God taught us a lesson. He brought a whole damn community down to show you you're wrong, but yet we did not understand. We got confused. Thought that the young people was responsible for burning down all of those houses, burning up all that valuable property, all that material stuff that we had abandoned righteousness to get was all lost in a minute. Because we took our babies, even though they may have been in their 30s and 20s, they were our babies, and we gave them to the beasts to be slaughtered and stood by to watch the slaughter. And so God have a way of teaching you a lesson. And because we insist on joining the white man in his historical bloodfest, God has kept us in a perpetual bloodfest. See, we don't understand what we're doing. If we aspire to be like these people, you aspire to be in partnership with murder. You aspire to be in partnership with thievery. You aspire to be in partnership with people who do not respect the elders. They can't wait for them to get in a nursing home and leave them there to die. You aspire to be in partnership with people who feel that their children isn't worth nothing to them other than what they produce for them. You aspire to deal with people who, when a member of the family gets sick, they put them away and forget about them. You aspire to be with people who would go to any length to take the raw material, the land, the labor of another person without thinking a second thought. If we keep on the course that we started on with the so-called civil rights movement, it'll be the same if Jesus, whom many of you believe in that personality, when it went to the Garden of Gethsemane, when it went to pray, and when he was tempted by the devil, it'll be the same if Jesus says, okay, Satan, I'm going to follow you. I'm I'm going to integrate with you, Satan. I'm going to become a partner with you in your deeds so that everything will be all right, and I don't have to have the hardship that comes with opposing what you're about. See, most of us, I got no problem with people who say they're Christians if they are doing what Christ did. I have no problem with people who say they're Muslim if they're doing what Muhammad did. I have no problem with people who say they're Israelite, Hebrews, or Jews if they're doing what the Maccabee family did. I got a problem with hypocrisy even if it's out of ignorance. And that's where we're at. There's no reason for the second largest group. Do you realize that the African Americans is second in size only to the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant in the United States? Do y'all realize that? They keep calling us a minority. Everybody else is a minority except us and the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And we are only a minority to the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, maybe. Because his ranks is so filled now with Jews and Catholics and Poles and everything else, he lost his white Anglo-Saxon Protestantness a long time ago. We may well be singularly the largest ethnic group in America. But we have accepted our enemies calling us minorities, and we have accepted acting out the role of some weak, wimpy minority. Even though we spend as a community nearly $400 billion a year, making us the 6th or 5th largest nation in the world economically, and don't have a damn thing to show for it. Except some clothes which we got to discard in a few years to buy more, or a raggedy piece of an automobile which you could have done well just to have kept the last one and keep it in running shape, or a bunch of cheap furniture that you're going to exchange 4 and 5 times in your lifetime in the same living room and dining room because you forgot what the furniture was for. You thought it was there for people to look at and not there to be used in a certain way. This is not just Philly. This is all of African America I'm talking about. This is our situation. Even when we get the most intellectual training the white man got to offer, we get on TV and talk about the size of each other's penis and the so forth and so on, like Brother Hill and Sister Thomas, or Sister Hill and Brother Thomas did. They were the cream of the crop. They did exactly what the civil rights movement said you should do. That's right. They integrated. Right. The brother got so integrated, he integrated the bedroom. Right. He heard Dr. King when he called for little black boys and little white girls to play together, and he went to playing and never stopped. Right? They integrated. They got PhDs. They got law degrees. They worked for the finest firms. They got to the top of the corporate ladders. They did everything they said if you integrated you could be, and all we had was some scum sitting on public television acting like ill-mannered, moral, unethical idiots. That's what we had. Instead of having some proud, strong-backed, clear, African-thinking people, we ended up with the best of the crop. And see, you can't put Thomas down and say he was conservative. I'm one of the most conservative people you're going to run into. I'm very conservative. I don't understand what people mean when they say you're conservative, you're liberal. I'm a conservative. Any African who's a conservative is a fool. What is it you got to be liberal about or to be liberal with? You've been liberal with your freedom, giving it to the Jews. Jews own you. You've been liberal with your property. The Jews done bought it from you or stole it from you. You've been liberal with the best of your male crop. The Jewish women got them. You've been liberal with the best of your female crop. The Jewish men got them too. We've been liberal with everything, and that's why we're in the situation we're in. We better learn how to conserve what's ours. We need to learn how to become very conservative. We need to think of the time when we were doing good, and if you check out that time, it's when we were very conservative. See, conservatism for white people mean one thing. Conservatism for us should mean something else. White people want to conserve white supremacy. I want to conserve the point in history when Africans had freedom. I want to conserve the notion of our freedom. I want to conserve the way of our ancestors. I can't be comfortable talking about Jesus or talking about Muhammad or talking about Moses or any of those things when I know that man is 25 million years old, and I know that paleontology, anthropology, and archaeology puts him in Africa. I know that Homo sapiens sapien is at least 5+ million years old, and he's also or she's also in Africa. When I know they've done the mitochondria DNA test more than once and proved that all species in the world of the human come from one black woman. And if we've been around that long and we don't get a whiff of Abraham until 1700 BC, what the hell is all that little fairy tale and mythology is all about that's got us so confused and hating each other and misusing each other? A story told in times too recent to take serious, and we've made it the point at which we determine whether we live or die, and we've killed in the name of it. And shape of the earth. And so it's the most correct map in existence, but they don't use it in public schools. I mean, these people with all this notion and talk about science and technology, when there's a map that occurs that deal with Africa, and this, you see the size of Africa as regards this map versus the size of Africa as regards this map. This is the old German map that was done back in the, I guess, around the 1600s. It's called the Mercator map. But when they did this, they hadn't even circumvented the globe. They were taking information from different navigators. They've sharpened it up some. But this early map, and I'll show you why I'm showing you this. If you look at Europe, or look at Asia, the Soviet Union is 8.7 square miles. Can everybody see the two black things here? You see the Soviet Union and how much bigger it is than Africa? Yet Africa is 11.6 million square miles versus the Soviet 8.7 million square miles. Yet on the map, they have the Soviet Union as twice the size of Africa. And there's a psychology to that, right? Psychologically, the assumption is that the Soviet Union is twice the size of Africa. When indeed, Africa is nearly twice the size of the Soviet Union. Let me show you one that's even more of a discrepancy. You see Greenland, which is a white European institution, is 0.8 million square miles. But it's almost twice the size as China, which is 3.7 million square miles, 3 times the size of Greenland. So this psychology of making the Northern Hemisphere appear in maps that are used to teach youngsters bigger is a part of the delusion involved in white academia to mislead people using a concept that's referred to as subliminal seduction, where things are used to form your consciousness that you don't actually see, because we have never really seen this until the second map came out. Take Alaska versus Mexico. Look at Mexico, tiny, right? Alaska, gigantic. But Mexico is 1 million square miles bigger than Alaska. But since Alaska is the white northern hemisphere, it is projected to be the larger. Or the entire piece showing the entire northern hemisphere. If you can see, North America, Greenland, Europe,
Look how big it is versus Asia, Africa, Central, South America, and Australia. Look how small it is. But the truth is, the Northern Hemisphere is 18.9 million square miles, while the Southern Hemisphere is 38.6 million square miles, twice the size plus. But the map that you see in your books, in your geography books, in your history books, and that you use in the classroom is a false projection of the Northern Hemisphere. And we contend that's a part of the subliminal teaching of white supremacy, imposing themselves in this kind of technical way into your consciousness as being something that is not. One other. The equator on the map that you currently use, the equator falls down below the top of South America and past below the Horn of Africa. But on a map calculated using satellites and computers, the equator is much higher up and falls, I think, where is it? Almost right across the desert up in Africa. So it should fall right through about here. Where they put it here, put it too, I think they made it, is that too low? Yeah, they made it too low. It should have been higher up. But that was to give the Northern Hemisphere more space into the south so that they can then claim North Africa and Egypt as being a part of the Northern Hemisphere sphere. Because much of the population in Egypt and in North Africa today is a population made up of Mediterranean Europe and the Balkan European and Turkish invaders, and they're not really the indigenous people of that region. We just blanketly call everybody there Arabs, but most of the people in North Africa are not Arabs, and most of the people in Egypt are not Arabs. They're Turks, they're Yugoslavians, they're Italians, they're Greeks, they're Syrians, and those are not Arabs. They are Arabs in Egypt, but they do not make up the majority of the population biologically, even though that's what we tend to say. Just like we tend to assume that most Egyptians are Muslims. That is true, but a significant population in Egypt is Coptic Christians and do not have the same loyalty to Arab nationalism and to Islam as those who are Muslims. But we never see this play out because we stereotype everybody in the Middle East that everybody is Muslim. We even stereotype the fact that the Arabs are the dominant factor in Islam, but the largest Muslim population in the world is in Africa, the second largest is Indonesia, and the third largest is in the Soviet Union. The Arabs fall as about the fifth largest Muslim population in the world, and not the first. The reason we think of them as being the large population is because Mecca is located in Saudi Arabia, and that is the center of Islamic worship. So, as we looked at some of the ancient history, if you go backwards, as I was showing you the other day, this institution, this particular one, this IPET ISUT, it was a university system. Plato studied there, Aristotle studied there for some short period. Thales was the first major Greek to study there. They came in there during the time of the Persian occupation in the 500 and 400 BC. And the Persians allowed the Greeks to come in because the Persians hired a lot of Greek mercenaries to fight for them. And thus Greeks initially got access to Egypt. And then when Alexander challenged the Persians, of course the Greeks would side with Alexander, and Alexander would take over Egypt as well in the 300s. But what happened in all of that period, the Africans who lived here in the Nile Valley, with all of these invasions coming from Greece, and then from Persia, or what is now Iran, and then later from Italy, which was then called Rome, the Africans would migrate south and southwest. So that if you go to a place like Ghana today, or you go to a place like Senegal, and you will see the Wolof people in Senegal, they will give a history that show them migrating out of the Nile Valley. Nile Valley is our word for Egypt. If you go to Ghana and you see a people like the Ga people, the Ga people would say they migrated not from Egypt, but they migrated from Palestine. And that they migrated at the time Palestine was invaded by the so-called Hebrew Israelite group. And then you'll find other groups who say that they are the Hebrew Israelite migration, which fled that area with the invasion of the Turks and other Arab populations and went across the top and come down the bottom. Many of them end up in Nigeria, Mali, and some of them as other groupings in Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Ghana.
So remember, our job as studiers of these metaphysical, esoteric knowledge is to help enhance people to be better. I, as a numerator, using the numbers, or quote-unquote numerals, and motivation to get people to understand why they need to activate their numbers to be their very best self and maximize it. Because the numerals hold a frequency. And if you're willing to turn up that frequency, then that frequency can help to guide you and navigate you to a higher height that will allow you to spiral to be your best self. We must remember that.